All right. So I'm going to break this down in 10 minutes. I've met the commission before, he's familiar with all this stuff. So first I'm going to tell you who we are. So the Lake Houston Redevelopment Authority is what's called a Texas Transportation Corporation. We're created pursuant to Texas Transportation Corporation Act. It's a not-for-profit governmental corporation. In this particular instance, the city of Houston petitioned the state created the corporation, and the city adopted by resolution. The reason they picked Chapter 431 is the authority to issue bonds. The city likes a corporation that's separate from the city because we can issue bonds and it doesn't appear in the city's debt model. So we're independent. It's either be the backer or the insurer of a bond issued by the authority. So the bonds are securitized by what's called tax increments. And those are basically, the city dedicates a portion of its existing ad valorem tax, which is property tax, to a fund, and then we use those funds to securitize the bond. So we don't have an office, we don't have a phone number, we don't have anything, we're just a corporation in name only. In the case of Lake Houston, they chose to do that because instead of paying admin fees, almost all their money goes into project costs. So instead of having a lot of overhead, or we have staff, for example, and in that way they can, I call Dave Martin coffee box boy, because he gets Starbucks coffee once a month and he gets a piece of pastry, and that's what he gets. So all of our money really goes towards public improvements. So next I'll talk about the project. The project is actually two phases. It's an eastern phase and a western phase. We're here today to talk about what they call the Overpass project. That's from the I-69 to Russell Palmer. There's a second phase. The second phase will be bid when the first phase is substantially complete, and that goes from Russell Palmer to a little bit past Woodland Hills. We are building an evacuation route. We're building to Atlas 14, which I do know what it means. Atlas 14 has to do with rainfall rates in a short period of time. So because we get these big floods, and really it's not so much that the water is coming out of the bayous, it's because the water is coming down so fast that gravity flows, and it just leaves the streets and goes everywhere. So Atlas 14 has to do with these intense short-term rainfall events. So we're building to Atlas 14 standards, and we're building to the 100-year floodplain of Atlas 14. So in your mind's eye, if you guys are familiar with Northpark Drive, it's going to be higher than it is today. If you're familiar with the eastern part of Northpark Drive, we're going to replace the bridges on the Kingwood diversion ditch, and everything where Ben's Branch crosses Northpark, all that's all done. It'll all be elevated, it'll be much different than it is today. On the western sector, which we're going to talk about now, we're going to not just elevate the road, we're going to put in 2 detention ponds on TxDOT right away at the I-69 and Northpark Drive. We can elevate the city's Northpark, but we had some community meetings, and what they said is there'd be a line of cars trying to get out, and then the actual intersection of feeder roads at the I-69 flood, and so that they wouldn't be able to get on the freeway, wouldn't be able to get out. So we're actually building 2 detention ponds, big ones, on TxDOT right away on the east side of the 69 to mitigate and bring the existing feeder roads out of those so people can actually get out. I got a little email that says some of the questions you have. I want to talk about 2 things. I'm going to look at the park. So in your mind's eye, if you're familiar with Northpark Drive, the section between the 494 and Russell Palmer has an enormous, I call it a canal. Some people call it a ditch. It's giant. So we're going to put a substantial amount of inline detention where that ditch is now. There'll be concrete boxes. At the end of these reservoirs will be what's called a restrictor. So water can rapidly flow in at a rapid rate, and then it's detained, it's restrained, and can only go out. We're also going to have 2 outflows. One to Ben's Branch, north of Northpark, and then there's going to be another outflow onto Kingwood Diversion Ditch. So I was sitting by Pamela earlier, she asked about flooding. Interestingly enough, not only because of code, we have to have a no impact, and we have to do a comprehensive drainage study. It's been approved by the Flood Control District, as well as the city floodplain administrator. But this project, when it's done, won't just mitigate Northpark Drive. Flooding will actually be improved because of what we're doing from from existing conditions today. If there was a no-build situation, it would be worse. The build actually improves existing. And I got 5 minutes. So in your mind's eye here, how you're going to construct. This is, I think, some of the questions we were getting. The contractor is going to do 4 phases. The first phase is going to build 2 concrete lanes on top of the ditches down. We're trying to maintain 2 lanes in both directions at all times in the construction period. So he's going to build 2 concrete lanes with ditches down, and then he's going to move all of the eastbound traffic onto the 2 lanes that just got constructed. So westbound will still continue to travel on the north side westbound. All eastbound traffic will go to 2 lanes. Then he's going to demo the 2 lanes on the south side and reconstruct the 2 lanes there. Then he's going to shift everything to the south. Westbound will become the 2 lanes in the middle. Southbound will become the 2 new lanes that were constructed. Then he's going to demo the north side and build 2 lanes there. Because we're going from 2 lanes to 6 lanes. So Pamela lives in Kingsville. I told her she's lucky because that's the easy part. So she's at the beginning of the construction. The second phase is then they're going to construct between the 494 and the I-69. We are building a 6-lane bridge over the 494 and the railroad tracks. The state is making us maintain at-grade crossings at the 494. So when you have 1 railroad crossing today, you're going to have 2. You'll have an eastbound dedicated feeder road and a westbound dedicated feeder road plus the bridge over. So the last part of the project will be the construction of the overpass itself. But at that point, you'll have 2 lanes going on now the feeder roads which will be constructed, eastbound at grade, and then 2 lanes coming westbound at the feeder roads. I was asked, where does the bridge end and where does it start? It actually leaves grade on the west side about where the Whataburger is, and then it comes back to grade about where Dairy Queen is. Or no, Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts. So what will happen is that right where Dunkin' Donuts is, if you were going westbound, is where the feeder road would peel off. You would go over the bridge or go to the feeder road. And then if you were coming eastbound, where Whataburger is, actually where the Exxon station is the beginning of where the feeder road peels off. Whataburger is actually on the feeder road. And then you'll have the lanes. We're going to put turnarounds underneath, so that if there's an incident at the turn track and you wouldn't be stuck, you could actually go underneath the bridge and make a U-turn back. I think I'm under time.
No, you got 2 minutes. Would you mind forwarding to the video?
Sure. So this is something you build off the, I'm actually Sarman was here today. If you want to see a lot of information about the project, you can go to Lake Houston RA, LakeHoustonRedevelopmentAuthority.com. On the left-hand side, you see the T1013 project. I mentioned there's 2 projects with T1013 and T1014. T1013 is the Overpass project. We have videos that show the landscaping and the detention ponds at the I-69. You can see the simulation, which is if you were on the Northpark Drive. There's also a funny one that shows they take traffic counts and they can convert those into little icons of cars. So you can see a build and no build situation. You can tell how much the traffic, you see this, the overpass, going over. So you can see in simulation what it's going to look like. It's very fancy. And I think that's probably all I have to say. We have a question and answer period later on. We have 2 minutes. You can see
You can give us a tour,
so
go over the overpass.
Yeah, you're going overpass, and then soon we'll get to Russell Palmer. We're going to build the intersection of Russell Palmer as part of phase 1. Then on east of Russell Palmer, we'll transition back to the asphalt that's existing. And then I mentioned the overpass pretty much has to be substantially completed before they'll demo the back half. It's 2.5 miles long. It's a very busy road. It's really not safe to have done all 2.5 miles at the same time. I mentioned before we're going to, on the eastern side, we're going to replace 2 bridges that keep with the Virgin Ditch, and then the engineers are still figuring out how they're going to get Ben's branch of the diagonal over Northpark Drive. It looks like they'll be done with the full purpose on the bridge itself. So I think I've taken my time. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ralph, for doing that. I think Northpark, once that project is done, is going to look a little better than it does today. What do you think? What we call the ditch, and you call, what was